Hey guys, so you finished your discussion board and now you should be going through your sources to see which sources will fit the writing assignment. So if you have not done that already, the first thing you need to do is go back and read the writing assignment for the argument essay and make sure you pay attention to the type of sources that are required for this assignment and look at the outline at the very bottom because that is the outline that you will be submitting for your next assignment. So similar to what I have here, I sent all of you guys this example. I want to see your specifics, how you plan on presenting your paper, but I also want it to be an MLA. So I still want to see at the very top your heading and your header. I want to see a title, like what are you thinking about titling your paper as it relates to your subject. In your introduction, I don't need to see an introduction, but I do want to see the points your introduction will cover. Remember, this should be your context. So these are all the details that I feel that are important to the context, the problem of the subject. The second paragraph of your paper should be your counter arguments. And I want, again, it to be specific. How many counter arguments are you going to address in your paper? And you can go back and look at my feedback from your discussion board, because those who did it correctly, I took those details and I reorganized them based on what I want to see for this next paper, for this assignment. And I reorganized this so you can actually build from that if you want. I've given you feedback. I showed you where there was some gaps, things like that. So I want to see that in this outline. I also want to see your claim that answers that research question. And I want you to consider where you're going to put it. Now, I have mine at the very end of my counter, but it can easily go in that first paragraph, just as long as it flows naturally. So that's why you see this phrase right here, because I am moving from the opposition's claims, grounds, and warrants. And I will present more than one. This is just the one that I put here, but I can present as many as I need to in order to answer this, to present the opposition fairly. So I present, my transition from my opposition to my claim, which is why you see the transitional word however, because I am moving into my argument. Okay. So the next thing, so again, all of this should be your context. And I want it to be specific based on your research, not just what you think you're going to talk about. I want you to create a formula, a plan. And this is what this outline is meant to do. And I want you to use complete sentences for, your grounds, your claim, and things like that. So here, this is where I move to my body paragraph. So body paragraph 1, my logic is induction. I'm beginning with the idea of what I call false prophets. And I explain that later on. So this is where I want to see complete sentences. I want to see your grounds. I don't need to see your backing. I do not need to see your warrants. All I need to see are your grounds. Your grounds or your reasons that help to support that claim. Your grounds, depending on how your argument is moving, can be induction. It could be some information from your sources that ultimately leads you to your assertion. But this is what I want to see are your grounds. And again, I want them to be complete sentences, because what I will be looking at is to see how your argument's moving, how these grounds go back and relate back to your thesis statement. So that's what I'm going to be looking at for your paper. And so I have one right here. I talk about these local leaders who relate to the common concerns of the youth and community, but they're not. And so that's why I call them false prophets. And then my point 2, I'm going to talk about political platforms and values. Here's my grounds for that. Paragraph 3, the American voices and changing concerns, like the minority is not considered the majority, and my grounds for that. So I have these subject headings in each body paragraph because it helps me stay focused on what that paragraph will cover. So as you start moving to writing the paper, you feel confident enough to write that paper. And remember, your conclusion must be your pathos. It should be your so what. So why should your audience care? And so I say that they should care because I'm talking to politicians, is that it's becoming obsolete if we continue this way. And so I am kind of giving that so what here. And again, it keeps me focused. It's not a complete conclusion, but it's enough to remind me when I start beginning drafting the paper where I'm going. And I just need to continue with that idea. And then I want to see your works cited. I do not have it here, but I have it on the other example that I provided. But I definitely want to see your works cited on your paper. So here's another example of an outline. The same kind of thing. Introduction should provide, establish your credibility. And this is the one I recently sent because I did want you to have the annotations on the side. So between watching this video and reading my comments from your discussion board and having the comments here, hopefully it'll help you. Those of you who attended the lecture last week, I had mentioned the outline. I had also mentioned the importance of you using, referencing your sources. And so this is what this one does. It provides sources. And I really like to do my outlines this way. So as I'm building my outline, I make a note of the sources that I will use. So that way, when I start drafting the paper, I feel more comfortable. I don't have to go scrounging around and looking for things. I can consult my outline. So this is what this outline does. It provides you those references that I would use. Here's my thesis right here again. I'm still moving inductively, but this is much more specific and detailed because, again, like I said, I have my references here. So one of the questions in your class was, do I use all 6 of my sources? Yes, you definitely use all 6 of your sources. But how you use them, when you use them, where you use them is left up to you. Okay, you can use them as many times as you want, as long as your argument isn't hidden behind everything, and that you're using them only to support your argument and not to make it. So make sure that you remember that your paper should not exceed 20% of your direct quotes. So I have a little note here. So you only want to quote the good stuff. So you see that a lot of my quotes are very small. I paraphrase quite a bit. So that way I know what I want to say, and I'm only using my sources when they are necessary. So I have 2 references here. I have Clockburn and I have Tevington here for this one point. I haven't really spent time developing this idea here, but I will. So you want to start thinking about how will you use your sources, and they should be good sources. You cannot use any websites or newspapers or magazines that I did not approve. So you need to go back and look at your works cited page and make sure that I've approved those sources, because the use of your sources and the quality of your sources is 20% of your grade. So you want to make sure that you're using good sources. Now here I also sent you a sample of the opening of an argument that ties into that first outline I sent you. So I give the context here, and you see that I'm referencing my sources. I paraphrase. I quote only very small little references that I feel that are meaningful. And then I give my citations even when I'm paraphrasing. So in this one here, I have 1 and 2 sources here from Malcolm X and 1 from Cattell. And so I know this is a very long first paragraph, but this is a rough draft. It's not the final draft. So somewhere between finishing up a rough draft and start, revising it, I will definitely cut some of this. But as you draft, just keep that in mind, that this is a rough draft. You want to make revisions as you do it, but don't get bogged down by some of the smaller nuances. when you write your paper. This is the counter argument. This entire paragraph is the counter argument because you want to show the counter argument fairly. And this is the transition into my claim. So this little small part is my thesis, but all the rest of this stuff is the opposition. So I make references to a lot of things that the opposition is saying about my argument. And then here I move into my first body paragraph where I address that opposition. So I'm following my outline just as I have it here in this paper. So you're going to use your outline, and once I look at it, I'm going to give you feedback, I'm going to give you suggestions, I'm going to look at your works cited page to make sure that it's accurate, that the sources are good, so that way when you begin drafting the paper, you have something concrete to work from. Or if there's something lacking in that outline, that you know how to correct it before you start drafting your paper. So I hope this helps, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me, but definitely get that formal outline in. Do not wait until the last minute to do it. You need to start planning, reading your sources, and I mean reading them. And I don't mean just looking at them and taking their ideas and putting them in an outline, because that is plagiarism. But looking at your argument, looking at your claim and wondering what are your grounds, what are your reasons to help to support that, and looking at your sources to help to validate it. Okay. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me, and I hope this video helps.